I think it's really interesting here because it is possible to listen. You don't have to agree.
Mhm.
You can still disagree. And unfortunately, people look at conversations as it has to be win lose. They look at disagreements as it has to be win lose. They look at arguments and it has to be win lose. And if I'm willing to listen and hear you out and hear your points, and if I can still have mine and we still end the conversation respectfully disagreeing with a very common civil dialogue, to me, that is a win on both sides.
Welcome back to The Art of Greatness. We've got another exciting guest with us, and she has accomplished so much already in her career. And I'm very excited to welcome a coach, public and motivational speaker, content creator, pretty much a guru in all things social media, founder of the talent brokerage, and former Miss Teen Minnesota, as well as soon to be, and I'm speaking it into existence, and I think you should too, the best selling author of her new book, whatever it's going to be called. We don't know yet. Maybe we'll find out today. We have
Thank
Giselle
you.
Ugarte, if I pronounced that correctly. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, that's definitely one way that is fully and acceptable and correct to say. Ugarte or Ugarte is the Mexican way, and then Ugarte is the American way. So they all work for me, and I'm not offended by any other variation.
Yeah, I had to YouTube it just to make sure I got it right. I was like, how do you say this? Because I thought it was Ugarte at first.
Yeah, yeah, it's a tricky one, but yeah, it's Tex-Mex.
But welcome. We actually ended up meeting on Clubhouse a few years ago. And then I finally had the chance to experience an in person talk with Giselle for almost an hour. And it was absolutely incredible. I kind of want to go to that because I had some takeaways and I took some notes in my phone from what I felt in watching you on stage. And I kind of want to start there because I really felt like you captivated the audience really well. You were vocal, you were animated, you took up a lot of the real estate on stage. You were going from one place to another. Use the you pointed, you did so many of these wonderful things that I feel that was one of the best that we had seen on stage all week. So thank you for that. Thank you for the content. And I kind of want to start there. How does that feel being up on stage and how do you prepare for that? What's the mindset? How did you get to this place?
It was so awesome getting to go to Forum and see so many of my friends and clients and peers in the audience. I feel like in that sense, when you know people who were in the seats, that's almost more nerve-wracking than being in a room full of people who you don't know and who you've never met before. And so in that sense, I felt like I was a lot more anxious and I had a lot more pressure on myself because I wanted to do well. In my audience are people who I coach as clients in their strategy, in their spark, in their content, and also people who I coach in terms of speaking. There were also people in the room who I represent for their speaking and for their influence and their identity. And so again, being someone who I'm on their team to show up in that way, it just made it that much more special and I cared that much more about it. And it felt really good to be up there, feel like I was in my zone. I felt the energy in the room. It was so contagious and I was definitely proud of what I put out on that stage. I joked to our friend Shane Boyle, who's a real estate agent out of New York, that I blacked out at moments because I was just so in it and so passionate when I was up there. Because when I get on stage, I mean, I'm up, I'm down, I'm right, I'm left, I'm screaming, I'm whispering. I would try to pull a lot of dimension to hold attention that I never take for granted and combine a little bit of the woo-woo motivation with the tactical and the strategy. And if I did that, which it sounds like I did, then mission accomplished. And at the same time, I always believe in room for improvement. So like that stage was something where I got off stage and I felt like, oh my God, I crushed it. And then 15 minutes passed and there were at least 45 things that I wish I not wish, but that I think I could have done differently. or that I go, oh man, I wish I would have mentioned this thing, or oh, you know what, next time I need to make sure I do this. And when I get up on stage, I have an idea of what I'm going to say, but it's not scripted by any means. So there were even a couple of new jokes that I invented while I was up there and got to test out and play with. And so you know, it's fun. I feel so grateful. Someone sent me a message afterwards saying, you look like you're living in your purpose. And I fully believed and felt that.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I thought it was spectacular, and I'm lucky to have experienced that in person. I think it's just completely different in person. And if anyone gets a chance, please go watch Giselle. She speaks at a lot of events. You've spoken at some of the biggest real estate events that exist, period. You're out there training a lot of different people. In terms of mindset and kind of getting to this place where you're at today, do you feel like you've always had this, or did this develop over time? Because your first speaking gig, your first paid speaking gig was with Gary Vee. And prior to that, did you have many encounters speaking in front of hundreds of people?
I mean, here's the thing, like, they say, what is it? The master is like 1,000 hours or 10,000 hours or something like that, and so even though, for example, my first paid speaking gig was in such a way, there were a lot of instances in my life that I feel prepared me for that moment and that I feel are continuing to allow for me to adapt to the changing landscape that we're experiencing in the world of media, in the world of coaching, in the world of speaking. And so, you know, I sometimes joke that for me, it all started when I was really, really little, and my mom was a dancer. And so she put us in theater and improv class. And I was doing monologues and plays and skits at a very, very early age, and little things, which it sounds so silly, but I honestly go back to this where we would be in the drive through line at McDonald's, and my mom had this massive Suburban that would be filled with kids, and she would put in her order, and then she would pull up and we would order our own orders. Like, we would go to the restaurant and the server would come over, What would you like?" And she would ask, you know, my mom, "What do the kids want?" And she would say, "You can ask them what they want." And so there were little moments that she put us into that I didn't think much of at the time. But even back then, where when people used to talk on the phone and there would be landlines, we would be the ones who would answer the phone. Ugarte residence, Giselle speaking. And we would be the one who was the voice on the voicemail, who, you know, and anytime that we had a question, my mom would challenge us to call. Okay, look up in the US, we have the yellow pages, like the phone directory, you know, call them, ask them. And she taught us to use our voices at an early age. And so a lot of just different instances. I was also someone who, you know, many would diagnose with ADHD. I've never been officially diagnosed, but all of those symptoms, sure, I have them. I went to schools that they um they would give certain assignments, and you could have the option of doing the writing or the worksheet, or you could be more creative with it. And so, for example, if I had a choice of writing a paper or delivering a monologue, I'll deliver the monologue. So I did that, and I did do dance, and theater followed me into high school, and I eventually did pageants, which is, you mentioned the Miss Teen Minnesota thing, which sounds so silly, and I even cringe sometimes thinking about that, but I wanted to be a TV host. That was my dream. It was not to be a professional speaker. It was, I wanted to be a TV host. And when I looked at all the TV hosts who I aspired to be like, and this holds true for any career, any industry, if you have a dream, go find people who have made some or all of that dream come true and go look at the path that it took to get there. And they might be similar, and success can leave clues. They might be totally different, in which case that's inspiring for you, which means there's not a single path to success. But one thing that I noticed among a lot of different journalists and hosts that I looked up to is that all of them had done pageants. And so I thought, huh, all right, well, if all of them did that, then maybe I should do that too. And I did interview training with myself, and I practiced public speaking, and I lost all the weight, which then taught me discipline and working out with, you know, professional trainers and athletes at my school. And there were a lot of things that, looking back, where even though I haven't had quote unquote speaker training, absolutely was training for me as a speaker, and led to then, yes, a career in TV hosting. And what I think is so interesting though is a lot of people say, "Oh, well, you did TV hosting, so no wonder you're such a good speaker." The reality is that what TV hosting taught me is how to read a teleprompter and a really good copy and how to make a script sound natural, but I had to do a lot of unlearning, and this is where my career as a radio host came into play because I was comfortable telling other people's stories, I was not comfortable telling my own. And that's something that no matter what industry you're in, if you're having to, for whatever reason, build a personal brand or even salespeople, you are so good at selling a product, or you're so good at talking about a house, or you're so good at talking about a team. But when it comes to talking about yourself, that's extremely uncomfortable. And it really gave me the practice and the confidence, although after a lot of struggle, to tell stories and to create relationships with the audience, and all of those things combined in hindsight make what I'm now doing make a lot of sense. And where a lot of people feel overwhelmed with social media and short form video and Instagram reels and TikTok and LinkedIn, and oh my god, what am I going to do? What's so funny is that it's nothing new, all of it's cyclical. Like, all of it is cyclical. We look back, and what everyone feels about TikTok and Reels today is what people were feeling about YouTube before. If we really think about it, like short form video, the earliest short form video is the news, which has been around for decades. You know, the podcasts, that's nothing new. That was morning radio. Before that, that was like standard radio. It's all cyclical. It's all keeping attention. It's just coming in different forms. But the ways that I was advising people over a decade ago about building connection and even editing, it's the same then as it is now. There's nothing about it that is different other than the method of transaction. And that's it. That's it. But we don't want to, as humans, believe that. There's no possible way. And it's not me. It's not me. Yes, it is. You are the vehicle. It is fully you. It is fully that you need to feel connected. And if not, then that's where you lose.
Because a lot of times people will see you and they'll say, and I'm sure you've heard this more than once, I could never do that. You were just amazing. I could never get in front of people and speak like that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And partially it's confidence, partially it's also knowing what you're talking about. If you know what you're speaking of, it makes it that much easier. You're an
Mhm.
expert at what you do. It makes it that much easier to jump in front of 1,000 people and talk about it because you know what you're talking about. You're not making shit up while you're up there. That's the other half of the battle is being an expert.
If you tell yourself that you could never, you won't. You won't. And if you tell yourself that you will absolutely, or that you have, or even at the beginning of this conversation, you began manifesting my book for me and my behalf, and thank you so much for that. You have to be a little delusional in your dreams because it's something that you've never done yet.
Yeah.
So you don't actually know factually that you are capable of doing it other than that belief in yourself, or that somebody else said that you could, or maybe somebody who you believe is similar to you did it, therefore you see it as being possible. But 1000%, even me opening up for Gary Vee, that was delusion. It started out as me writing it in a book, manifesting that I'm going to work with Gary Vee. I'm going to share a stage with Gary Vee. I'm going to be a professional speaker. That's not to say that it's not going to be hard, or that I'm not going to get rejected, or that I'm not going to fail miserably or just totally kill it on that stage. But you need to believe that you're capable of it, that you deserve to be there, that it's a privilege for people to see you and for you to be there. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Um, and you have to be the first person to, even if you don't believe it, just start saying it out loud. Just start saying it to you. And that's I remember there's this preacher over here in the US called Joel Osteen, and he had this book that my brother had on CDs back in the day. And I remember my brother left it in his car, and I borrowed his car once, and it started playing. And there was this whole chapter about, I think her name was Heather Whiteside, and she wanted to be Miss America. But what was so interesting is that Miss America is this competition that it has a lot of interview and it has talent. And Heather is was deaf, Like, how are you gonna win a pageant and one that includes talent when you're deaf? And what she did and what I learned in that moment when I first heard this CD, I think I was 14 or 15 years old, was she would watch videos over and over and over again of Miss America getting crowned. And she would picture herself being in that position. She would close her eyes and she would picture herself and she would watch it over and over and over of herself being crowned as Miss America. And it was not an easy feat for her. And she lost a handful of different pageants. I think she moved states, but eventually she became Miss America. And it was so timely because in that moment, I was particularly in a quest to be in a pageant and to win, which I didn't have the body type. I think I lost 40 or 50 pounds for that. I didn't have any experience. I didn't have a coach. And yet I began learning in that moment the power of visualizing and manifestation. And so for the longest time, I have been visualizing me coming out on a stage and hearing the music of me coming out and seeing the audience and connecting with the audience and carrying myself in some kind of a way and feeling that connection. I've All of that has been something that I have been visualizing for years, for over a decade. And I absolutely still have moments where I catch myself and go, "Oh my god, this is this is the thing, Giselle. Like, 3, 5, 10 years ago, this is what you were dreaming. This is what you were imagining." And it's our minds are so, so, so powerful of what you begin to open your eyes to as you open your mind and see the realm of possibilities where the average person would cancel themselves out before even giving anybody else the opportunity to reject them.
No, I love it. I completely agree, and I think it holds true to so many things that we do in life. We always have these self-limiting beliefs, and who's the person that's stopping you? It's usually the person that's looking at you in the mirror, right? It's nobody else that's holding you back to say you can't hit record, you can't do this. And even at the forum, I remember having this chat with a few agents that were from the US, and they were saying, I don't have a really good camera, and this is one of the most popular excuses that are around. I don't have a great camera, so I actually pulled up my phone. I showed her two clips. I'm like, one of these clips are shot with a $4,000 setup. The other one is shot with an iPhone. Can you guess which one? She thought the iPhone one was shot with a $4,000 camera. And the only difference was better lighting. That was it. And and then you start explaining to them going back 10 years ago when you, I guess, started on your journey, we didn't have this type of access. We didn't have these types of devices. And it's gotten better and better. You no longer need to go out and buy a $4,000 camera or a lens. And go back 10, 15 years ago, maybe some people felt like they needed to step up and go do that, but you can buy a good ring light, throw your iPhone on top, maybe buy two lights, two LED lights, and that's half the battle. Buy a decent mic. It's usually a $200 setup or sub $200 setup instead of a three, four, $5,000 setup where a lot of people think that's what they need to start making videos. And it's the content that counts, um, not just the video quality, right? What you're saying matters.
Well, you really need to ask yourself, what's my intention of making these videos in the first place? Who am I trying to reach? Because, if your goal is that you want to be able to attract extremely high ticket, high net worth clients, where you are going to have some type of a proof of concept that you want to market something that they are doing and help them in the process, then absolutely you need to have that production quality and you should be investing in that. So, for example, we're referring to the agency. And if you're wanting to represent multi-million dollar luxury properties, then absolutely I want to see you investing in the production or showing me even a tour that's extremely high quality in the same way that you would market my house. And also, I want to know what you are like without that high level production, because if you can't connect using your phone, you're not going to be able to connect with that whole production team either. And what we even see from research and studies is that people are more inclined to trust someone when they see that you are creating content that is either created on or meant to be consumed on your phone. I represent a lot of influencers, and in the last few years, we have had giant brands specifically request that they use their phones for any type of influencer content because of the trust that they're trying to create with that particular audience. And so it's really just asking yourself, who do I want to see this? And what is the impression that I want to give? And recognizing again, it's not mutually exclusive. It's not a, oh, you can only do the highest quality content if you're wanting to get $1 million sales. No, it's both. It's both. Because again, what are you trying to do? You're trying to connect, you're trying to build trust, and also you're trying to prove what it is that you're wanting to do. But where we get caught up is we're thinking of, well, what's the opinion of this person or this person? Or really you're just in your own head thinking that you're not good enough and coming up with those excuses. And so I also feel like if you can't create content on your phone, if you keep getting in your own way, then great, hire someone just for the sake of accountability and tell them to charge you or fine you if you try to cancel. And yeah, maybe the first few sessions are going to be very cringe and you're going to be super awkward and it's going to suck and it's going to feel weird. Awesome. At least you did it and you'll get better next time. Or what's also fun is when you think you totally crushed it and then 5, 10 years go by and you go, oh God, that was awful, horrible. But at least you did it. You did it and you figured out what you needed to do. But you can't learn or unlearn until you're willing to get in the water. And that's an example that I say all the time. David Goggins, who is a incredible, beautiful psychopath, wrote this book called Can't Hurt Me.
Uh,
And this
One of
man
my favorite
is
books, by the way.
like ultra stupid marathoner who, like, I would say almost to a toxic fault, would rather run a bajillion miles than, like, I don't know, go to therapy, but I digress. The point is, this man is a Navy SEAL and he he established the pursuit of wanting to be a Navy SEAL and he couldn't even swim. And he talks about how, for example, you can read all of the books about swimming, you can go to all the classes about swimming, you can watch people swim, but until you get in the water, you're not going to be able to learn how to swim. And when you get in the water, you're going to look stupid. Like you're going to have your arms flailing everywhere. You're going to be choking on water, probably get it up your nose, snot everywhere. You don't know what to do with your hands. You don't know what to do with your eyes. But until you get into the water, you can't. And I feel like visionaries, we want to try to know everything about everything before we even get started. And you know enough, and you know yourself enough, and you know your truth enough. And if you don't, then don't be talking about that thing because that's not something that you're an expert of and you're not enthusiastic about it. If you don't know how to talk about that subject, great, change the subject or go do some more work until you feel ready to talk about it. You should be creating content around the things that you're talking about and all of the time and answering questions about and all of the time with the people who you already know. And that's where that comes from.
Oh, love that. And David Goggins is probably one of my favorite authors, and he's fucking nuts though. Like in all
Yeah,
honesty, in a
he's
in a
not,
crazy
kids do
great
not
kind of way.
yeah,
It's not
adore,
sane.
admire 1000 million%. And also, I'm glad I'm not that.
Yeah. I'm not that either. I wish I was more like David. I'd be achieving a lot more than I am right now. Maybe I need to get in shape, so maybe I need David to kick my ass, or I need to kick my own ass. But on that note, we spoke a lot about media, this chase for almost this chase for perfection, right? And you speak about this in Ryan's podcast. This comes up. You had this irrational view of what perfection really was, and you wanted to be perfect early on in your career, early on when you got started with social media. And social media isn't really that old, right? Like Facebook is 2004, I think. Instagram is 2011. I think TikTok's 2017. So we're less than 2 decades. So they're very much in their infancy stages for the most part, and they're still developing. In the last, I guess, decade that you've been in the business, how have you seen that shift in terms of people's pursuit for perfection? Has it gotten worse or has it gotten easier?
It's exactly the same. It is exactly the same. I remember I got on YouTube years and years ago, almost 15 years ago. And I didn't know what YouTube was. Okay. Like nobody knew what a blog was. I put videos up on YouTube thinking that nobody would see them. Okay. Like I put them up thinking no one would see them and on purpose. I just wanted to get better at filming and creating and editing videos. And I also learned, oh my gosh, wait, I can copy and paste this link and I can send this to someone and customize it and email it versus spending $25 to burn a DVD and print out my resume and put it in a folder that will likely end up in the trash. What? And then what ended up happening was I found these extraordinarily average teenagers who had hundreds of thousands, millions of subscribers creating videos from their dorm rooms, their bedrooms on low quality video. And they were rambling and they weren't wearing makeup and they just had no polish whatsoever. And I didn't understand how in the world are this goes against everything I've ever learned about speaking and communicating and TV hosting where I felt like I needed to be a certain size and be full hair and makeup and glam ready. And I don't understand it. So there's no way it could hold on. Is it the day that they're posting? Is it the title that they're using? Is it the cover that they're using? Is it the description? Is it the time? Is it the how many times a week that they're posting? Because there's no way. They're so average. What is this? This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Exact same thing happened with TikTok. Exact same thing. To a T. What are these teenagers doing dancing around in their bedroom? Doesn't make any sense. This is so stupid. What how many times are they posting? What hashtags are they using? What is this? What I don't this doesn't make any sense. They're doing it on their phone? People have such a hard time believing that sure, there are absolutely certain tactics that you can use to you know give yourself a higher probability of capturing and keeping someone's attention, absolutely. But the reason why these kids have such cult like communities, they all have certain things in common. One is the consistency aspect of it. The other is the community aspect of it. They're letting you into their lives, they're introducing you to their friends, they're collaborating with other people, they're talking to you as if they already know you. They genuinely care about who they're talking to. And they're not doing it just for the sake of going viral, but because for them, creating content is fun. Like it's fun for them. Um, and they're not perfect. They're extraordinarily average because that's relatable. And so they can be using a super outdated camera or have a messy room or say things that don't totally make sense or stutter. And people just don't understand what that is because they can't see that in themselves because they so badly want to try to hit this irrational level. And I've fully been there. You know, again, remember, it took me years, 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 years of unlearning. And I was not comfortable in any of that landscape whatsoever. If I didn't weigh a certain amount in the morning, if I had a pimple on my face, like I felt like I couldn't even go about my day. And now it is just so different where if anything, where I do feel like it's gotten somewhat better and also worse is, back then, the standard of beauty was established with TVs and magazines and movies and red carpets. And there was one standard of beauty, and the directors and the casting people, they were all after the same idea of what beauty was. Now, you don't have to wait for a casting director to give you an opportunity to share your story or have a microphone or put yourself out there in your photos and your videos and your story. And we can see beauty in all shapes and sizes and colors and so many different paths of success. But there are still so many of us that are holding on to that idea of perfection or who are now addicted to the filters that are also just as easily accessible as those tools where we can create. And so for me, I really do believe again everything is cyclical. A lot of it is repeated, but I've never felt more hopeful with the tools that we now have to be able to connect in a way that we never have before.
Because we have more data, more information, a higher ability to make better content at the end of the day. You can go online and watch Mr. Beast talk about it for 20 minutes, where it's incredible. Where he says the first 5 seconds, the first 10 seconds, what are you doing with captions? What are you doing with emojis? How are you doing it? And then you see your co creators starting to do those things. And then how do you captivate attention? And I think going back to one of your earlier points, it kind of comes back to self reflection a lot of times. And you said this yourself, getting off the stage after doing Gary Vee, getting off the stage after doing the agency forum, in understanding and looking back and saying, okay, where did I crush it? But where can I improve more importantly? Or surround yourself with people and seek the feedback. And I think this is one of those things that makes you a great leader out there is seeking the feedback from people that you trust. I don't want to always hear I'm doing a great job because in all honesty that's not constructive and that will never help me get better. If someone can tell me, "Hey, here's what you can improve 1, 2, 3," that's what I'd rather hear. And even with one of my first YouTube videos that I posted, it was 16 minutes long. I posted. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna post it. It needs to go out there. And then I listened to it. I was like, I'm rambling. I'm rambling. I'm rambling. And the points where I was rambling, I lost viewership, and I could physically see that at that 7 to 9 minute mark where I went on a 2 minute rant about luxury real estate, which made no sense. Like it was unnecessary. It was excess information. Didn't need to be in there. Wasn't to the point. I lost viewership. And then I was like, okay, how do I make it more precise for the viewer? What's that experience like? But until you can do that and critique yourself and be open to criticism, I think this is where a lot of people, especially new age, old age, doesn't matter which generation you're from, people are very defensive and they want to hold their cards close to their chest. They don't want to be told they're doing anything wrong, and they don't generally want to even seek feedback. I find a lot of times, especially in the real estate world where it's hard, people don't have very thick skin at times. But you find others that are very open to it. What have you seen as a coach, and how have you kind of coached people through that in really understanding how they're going to get better from point A to point B?
Well, there's a couple of things that you said that I want to go into. First of all, I believe that the root of all evil is a lack of accountability. And I can tell very quickly, for example, when someone is mad at the algorithm or can't understand how or where they could be doing better. They think that they have done everything and tried everything and there's nothing left to do. To which I say, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So, where else is that showing up in your life? And there's always, always, always room for improvement. Yes, there are absolutely moments and times when it might feel like a platform is changing. For example, I feel like TikTok is going from what used to be a community and a social media platform, and now it's becoming more of an entertainment platform, kind of like YouTube. There used to be community in the comments, and now the inbox is just a cluster and it doesn't make any sense. So the landscape legitimately is changing. But when people say, oh, well, views are down on Instagram because it's summer or because it's winter or because blah, 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 views are down for you, period. Your views are down. Your views are down. Now, why are your views down? Because somebody else, their views might be up. So, what is it that they are doing or that you are not doing where you could potentially make your content better or more connected or switching things up? Because guess what? What you were doing 5 months ago or 5 years ago might have worked then, but it's not going to work now. And again, I don't want to get lost here into thinking, well, but Giselle, I thought you said that it's exactly the same. It is exactly the same in that people want to feel connected. People want to feel connected and people evolve as human beings. And so, for example, what I don't mean is, oh, it didn't work back then. But if you're doing it in the exact same type of format, but the structure has changed, then we need to still get attention, but it might be in a different way. And also, you've evolved as has your audience. So, for example, 10 years ago, I was doing makeup and beauty tutorials. Like that was what I wanted to do. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm doing business tips. Why? Because you could tell that I was losing passion for my makeup and beauty tutorials. And also, my audience was 13 to 17-year-old girls. And I was growing up and I didn't want to cater to that anymore. And so I matured my content into what I was most passionate about as a personal brand. Because, yes, chances are you're a personal brand, you're not a business with a face. And that's another distinction to make. Are you a business that has a face, which every business should have a face? Or are you a personal brand? But even the business with faces, those faces have personal brands. So chances are you're the personal brand, but I digress. We can get into that later. The other thing that I think is so important to mention is you talked about how you were looking at the data. And I feel like the data really only tells part of the story. Why? Because even the most sophisticated artificial intelligence does not understand emotion and does not understand relationships in the way that a human can. Yes, it might be able to read body language and it might be able to string words together to create a result. But for example, where, yeah, maybe 90% of the people did drop off at your 16-second mark, what if the rest of that percentage watched until the very end of the video? And those are your most dedicated community members where you don't need to have everybody watch every single minute. But if you can create a very dedicated, serious community, then that on its own is still a win. Especially, for example, if you are in the business where your client might only work with you once a year or once a decade, if you can keep them top of mind for other reasons and get to latch onto you beyond just a transactional relationship, that's important. And I think where we're going wrong in terms of content creation, both of those things combined, is now you're starting to see different AI platforms that edit for you and they'll give you, the highest chance of going viral because of this particular hook or prompt or blah 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 blah. Let's think about this for a moment. Like, is there some truth to that data? I mean, sure, because what they're ultimately doing is they're recognizing patterns in what you're saying and hooks and words, and they're combining that with other data of highly viewed videos. However, just because you and I say the exact same words does not mean that it's going to be received in the exact same way. If I'm reading a script and I look completely disengaged, but I'm just uttering those words, is that going to give me the same results as somebody who says those exact same words and they're totally engaged and they're excited and they actually give me better content? Yeah, they are. And so I actually have yet to use any of those AA platforms and see one perfectly wonderfully edited video. It's a lot of incomplete thoughts and disarray. And you have a lot of people who are just continuing to shoot themselves in the foot, trying to get a shortcut and get rich fast versus understand how to humanize their message and understand their community beyond just a like or a view count. Even when we're looking at data, like this is when your audience is most engaged. Oh, you mean like literally all the time because we check our phones multiple times a day? So they're active all day long except for when they're sleeping? Oh my gosh, that's so wild. And feeds are no longer chronological. So even if they are active at 5 p.m., they might not even see my post until Friday because of the way that it's being recommended on different platforms. So I just feel like there are so many different distractions, quite frankly, where we are trying to manufacture a human experience rather than just be and allow for ourselves to connect. And I know that sounds woo woo. And yes, there are totally tactics, of course, where you mentioned the first 5 to 10 seconds are the most important. No, it's not. It's the first frame. I'm not sitting there scrolling, stopping at your video going 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, keep going. No, I'm already actively scrolling and you have to get me to stop. And so there are totally ways that in that first frame, things like having a headline, starting your video when you've already started talking and there's a sound coming out of your mouth, making sure that you are using captions, making sure that it is clear what's happening, ideally showing your face versus, a title card or something stupid like that. There are totally some of those tactics. And also, even if you do all of those tactics, it's not going to guarantee anything. I think we're also what's in that perfection box of limiting beliefs is this idea that you want everybody to like you. Not everybody's going to like you. Thank goodness for that. I spent more than half of my life not liking myself. So I can't expect someone to like me after a 2 or 3 seconds. But hey, I'm in a much better place right now. So if I can do that, great. And so I just, it's really difficult, but having to force ourselves to really think about, put yourself in the seat of the person who is scrolling. What are they thinking? We keep trying to beat the algorithms, but the algorithms are a reflection of us and our watch habits. So that's something that we always need to remind ourselves of, where it's like, well, what should I say in a DM if I'm reaching out to someone? I don't know. Have you ever been personally victimized by a cold DM that couldn't feel more robotic and impersonal? Cool. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't
Let's
copy
start there.
paste.
Yeah.
Don't get AI to write everything for you either.
Yeah.
And I think so.
Huge mistake. If you could Google it or chat GBT it, you're not doing enough. You're mailing it in.
Yeah, so I feel like, and I use ChatGPT quite often. I've used a lot of the AI tools that you mentioned, like Opus Pro as an example, Opus Clip, a lot of the ones that were brought up in the presentation at the forum as well. And after having used them, one thing I've realized is exactly what you said. A, nothing is perfect when it comes out. You actually have to. It's a good starting point. Why I like it is I like it for the starting point and the auto captions. I still have to personally click on each one and verify that it makes sense because some of them don't make any sense whatsoever. The first
Yeah.
one might have a virality score of 99. And a lot of times from the podcast, I'm getting 40 clips out of that. I can't use all 40 of them.
Right.
Maybe I can use 15 after tweaking all of them. Maybe one or two are decent, but that gives you an idea as to it's a starting point, just like ChatGPT. All right, give me an intro for my video. Great, but does it even make sense? Like, where's the human? I like ChatGPT from the aspect of it's a great starting point, but it's
Yeah.
definitely not a script for the video that I'm talking about because
Exactly.
it doesn't give any real expertise. It's generic bullshit that everyone's heard, and they know you're
Yeah.
talking like you're reading a teleprompter or you're reading a script instead of making
Word.
it, hey,
Yeah.
here's my favorite paint colors. Why? Here's where I use them. Here's what I did.
Right.
And then where's that human element and then the relatability? And one other thing I want to touch on is I find a lot of people, including myself early on, we chase likes. We want, and we're looking for likes or we're looking for follows or we're looking for the. I honestly stopped caring. And even when I launched the podcast, a lot of people ask me, hey, what's the vision? I'm like, it's not about likes. It's not about views. It's about staying true to what I want to do. A lot of people tell me, hey, you should do 30-minute podcast, 15. You know what? I'm doing a long form session. I'm doing it a little bit differently. Try to do a lot of research on a lot of my guests. I don't want to ask the exact same questions that either Ryan asked you or the last person asked you or the other or David asked you on his podcast. In just understanding how am I going to be different but still stay true to what I want to do. And it goes back to this popular Tom Ferry quote, I believe in it. Your vibe attracts your tribe. At the end of the day, if you focus on what you said, which is a relatability, B consistency, and what it is that you want to while still staying focused on the things that will sure add additional views or capture attention or capture that next person, it will come in time. It may not be overnight, but I'm also true to who I want on the podcast. I also want the right type of guest. I don't want to just invite anyone on the podcast just to fill in. Even if that means I have to wait 6 months of emailing Giselle and her assistant to get her on, that means I want Giselle on the podcast. I think she's the right person because I think there's so much value there to uncover. So I just wanted to add that.
Well, and Tom Ferry definitely did not, invent the quote, "Your vibe attracts your tribe."
He just
But
uses it.
God bless. But I totally understand what you're trying to say with that, and there are even a couple of things there. There are things that you can pay attention to. Like, I love looking at saves and shares. Who felt pulled enough to feel like they wanted to share my content with someone else, or who saved it because they felt like this was strong enough that I want to go back and come back to it later, or who left a comment that was longer than just an emoji because they felt some kind of a way, or who sent me a DM afterwards because they said, "Oh my gosh, I loved that conversation." My goal absolutely is I want to move someone with my content. And likes and views are as passive as it gets. But if you can get someone to do one of those four things, then that's when you know, okay, we're moving. Or if someone reaches out to you saying, I want to work with you, then that makes all of the difference. Or if you yourself, if you feel good, sometimes what you need to focus on is just being able to film without sweating or being able to film on one take instead of 60. Like, let that be your metric to start out with. We're not trying to, be the fastest sprinter in the race. It's no, hold on. Let's just get to the gym and make sure that we know how we're using the weights properly and that we have the right form. Like, let's start there. And then that way we can, establish our own meaningful metrics versus just the vanity ones. And absolutely that consistency of just continuing to put in your reps, where at first it's going to feel weird and awkward and silly and stupid, but being able to look back and see how far you've come or see that there are areas of improvement. Where one of my clients today, she was like, I haven't improved, what are you talking about? And I'm like, what? Like, let's just look at where you were at a year ago. Okay? A year ago, there's no way you would have posted this. There's no way you would have posted that, because in those instances she did something funny with her mouth and kind of did the mouth fart thing because she said something wrong where she was like, that was dumb, but she posted it anyway. Like, she posted that without the edit. She posted without makeup on. And I'm like, you've 1000% improved. Like, let's take a moment. Like, at least you did it and you're doing it. And now the things that you're frustrated about are totally different problems than what you had. But it's constantly just finding ways for you to improve and to get you into the direction of where you want to go. Because cool, if even you do get a million views, but if that's not leading you to your intentions of more business, then what does that mean? Like, cool that your first time home buying content gets a lot of views, but you told me that you wanted to attract $10 million sellers. You told me that you never wanted to work with another buyer. So where's the disconnect? Or you told me that you wanted to focus on vacation homes or investors. Where's that content? And so it's understanding that your path to success can and should look different than everybody else. Therefore, your content can and should look different than anybody else. And here's the other thing too, we get really stuck in our heads into thinking that we have to stand out and be different. We have to be so different. We have to be so original. But the reality is that the people who listen to your podcast are probably not the same people who listen to Ryan's podcast or to Tom's podcast or to whoever. There are people listening to this who are like, I've never even heard of Giselle before. Therefore, I haven't heard any of those basic questions before. Therefore, I don't even know what you're talking about. And so recognizing that us as vessels, that on its own differentiates us, and that the people who are coming to us, they might be in a different space, place, time, season, country, language, and that on its own is going to make the experience unique, even if you were to ask the exact same questions from another interview.
That's fair. That's great feedback. And that's feedback taken for me. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, don't be so hard on yourself, but I love that you do your homework. Like, that's awesome.
No, I have to. And I actually found out that I actually used ChatGPT a little bit because I took transcriptions of about 6 of your interviews, loaded them in a document, threw them in
Ah,
ChatGPT. And these are pro tips, guys. It's just how you
yeah.
utilize it. Do I have 8 hours to listen to every single interview? It's hard. And then I'll ask ChatGPT, hey, tell me what was the repetitive points in every interview. And it gave me all the questions that just kept coming back, the same stuff that was said. So I'm like, you know what? I want to stay away from those questions. Now I have something to go off of to say, hey, I can watch a 1.5 interview, but I don't need to spend 8 hours. I can actually use ChatGPT to analyze it, upload the document, and they'll do the work for me. It's
Yeah.
about being smarter, working smarter. So
Working smarter, not harder, and bouncing off of an empty page.
exactly. In your view, what are the top, or if you were to rank social media platforms, how would you rank them today, and where do you kind of see them going for entrepreneurs or realtors? Um, Generally, entrepreneurs. Let's just say, what would you put on top as the best platform that everyone has to be on?
Honestly, I really believe the grass is green where you water it. I know that sounds so silly, but I fully and wholly believe in that. I have clients and friends who are succeeding on every platform, and not necessarily simultaneously, but because they're putting time and attention into one, maybe two platforms, and they're really creating and building community there and or communities offline as well. And what is so awesome that's happening right now is that every single platform is fueled by the concept of recommendation. What does that mean? that means that your content, as long as your profile is public, it's guaranteed to be put in front of people who don't follow you. That's great. Like previously, you'd have to pay for that. Like your content's getting put in front of people in a targeted way, and you don't have to pay any money for that. And also, if you are someone who you do happen to invest in advertising, which I don't, but I used to work in an advertising agency. I used to run ads for different industries. And it used to be that we would sign on a client for 3 months minimum because the first 30 days typically were what was called a learning phase inside of the ads manager. The ads manager had to learn your audience. You had to input different emails and, interests and blah 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 blah. Now, you basically get a learning phase and for free when you're putting content out organically. Because if your organic content is not performing well with that combination of people who do already know you and the ones who don't, then it's definitely not going to do well if you put money behind it. Versus if you see that a piece of content does well organically and then you put money behind it, you've already tested it. And so, like, that's something unique. It's never been easier on every platform to grow. I will say that the potential that I saw on TikTok, it's no longer there. But I'm also still seeing people who are loving TikTok and doing really well there. I think that for me, it's a higher cost per entry. It takes more energy to be known and to establish your audience. And I think it's more difficult to create community. It's not impossible. There are absolutely people who are starting TikToks and today and developing cult followings, but it doesn't have the same potential that it did years ago. And I see the platform changing completely. I mentioned earlier that I see it becoming more of an entertainment platform than a community one. And I think YouTube is similar to that as well. I also see TikTok and YouTube being more search engines than community driven. So again, it goes back to where do you enjoy playing and posting and what's your intention? And really thinking about how people might stumble across your content. For me, my biggest things are I want to build community. I really want to build community. I, at this point, am not so much concerned about how many views I'm getting. That will eventually change when, for example, I launch my show and I want more eyes and I want more views and I'll be monetizing on those views as well and I'll want those views to then funnel into my community. But what will always and is most important for me is community. So where are the easiest places for me currently to build community? For me that's Instagram and that's LinkedIn. And that's for me personally, for my goals, where I genuinely enjoy playing the most and where I see the most potential for growth for what I'm trying to do and in my industry. And again, that's predominantly fueled by that recommendation piece, but also in the fact that for me, my love languages when it comes to content are my words and my videos. And where I'm able to do both of those things and really well are Instagram and LinkedIn. So that's why for me, that makes sense. But I've seen people even on their personal Facebook pages that they started in 2004. That's where they get in touch with their circle of influence in the most. And that's great. That works for you? Awesome. And now Facebook Reels are a thing. Some people, it's Facebook groups. They have cult like followings in these Facebook groups. Great. Awesome. Like, do that. Keep doing that wherever you feel good. Whenever you can have that intersectionality of what you love and that feels good, of what people love and that feels good, and that can then translate into offline relationships and connection, that's where the money is. And it's not the same place for everyone, and thank goodness for that.
All right. I'm going to jump into something different that we haven't spoken of yet.
Okay.
It has more to deal with personal and political views. I won't ask you to share yours, but what I will
Yeah,
ask you is, what is your opinion on people sharing about? Well, we've got wars around the world. We've got
yeah,
multiple. We've
yeah.
got all sorts of things happening where I think a lot of people are on walking on eggshells. They're not sure whether they should say something, shouldn't say something. We've got an election year next year in the US, the following year in Canada. So, what is your opinion on politics and what is happening in the world and using your platform?
Well, I believe that there is a deeper issue at play here, which is right now we have something, and I'm sure there's probably a name for it or a label for it, where you can say one issue or one remark, and someone will then go ahead and label you with 20 other beliefs. And that is so dangerous, and it is so harmful. And that on its own is something that we really need to catch ourselves if and when we are doing that, because it is so harmful. And where I also see a root of evil is a lack of communication and a lack of expression and being able to have conversations. This whole idea of it being wrong to be able to ask people questions, and just asking a question. Oh, who are you? You're so ignorant. So this, well, I have a question. How am I going to learn about it if I don't ask? How am I going to learn about it if I don't ask? And so I believe that we need to be able to call that out when we're seeing it. Of having conversation and creating conversations around things. And I also think this idea of cancel culture. Like now we're in this place of like, what's on the other side of cancel culture? Like at what point are we going to forgive someone? Because not being able to forgive someone who has generally learned a lesson, like what do we really want? All of these three things that I just mentioned are ultimately rooted in insecurity. Like they really are. Where you want to feel better about yourself because you made somebody else feel stupid, or you and when we're thinking about cancellation, I mean, if you try to cancel someone or if you try to shut somebody out, what you end up doing is you end up getting them even further on the other side from you, versus even considering your beliefs or meeting you somewhere in the middle. And it does the total opposite of what we're meaning to do. So, there are a few things here that are at play. One are those deeply rooted human, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Flaws, shortcomings that we have, and we need to call it out, and we need to be able to be more comfortable in that and really ask ourselves how we can do better in each of those regards. But then there is the, should you share your political beliefs online? Again, it goes back to, what would you do in person? My mom used to always say, if you don't want the whole world to see it, then don't post it, don't talk about it. And if you're someone who you are so passionate about something, and it is something that you walk around and live and breathe it and in real life, then if you feel pulled to share something, then share it. And if you don't. But I think that, even I'll add a number four, the pressure to force people to share or to pick a side, that too is also extremely toxic, especially in the way that it's positioned.
Mhm.
And to make people believe that silence is complicit and blah, blah, blah. And the reality is, it's like, hold on a second. It's not that they're being silent, it's that they're in fight mode or flight mode or freeze mode or fawn mode. And also, they're taking everything in. You have no idea what they're doing and in real life. And again, that's not helping someone with a conversation by scaring them even more. And so, it's a longer way of me ultimately saying that, I'm someone who I would prefer to stand up for things that I am in very deep belief of, issues that I'm very in deep belief of, which are usually human first approaches to things, rather than I'm going to stand behind a person or a country as a whole. Like, I am people first. And again, it's, it's different for everyone. There are some people who I know that for them, they feel very firm in their political beliefs, and that's actually how they get a lot of clients. Maybe they work with a lot of politicians, who are from the Republican Party, or maybe they have a lot of people who come from specific countries or religions or what have you. And if that is one of the ways that you connect with people, then great. Awesome. Like, put yourself into the human experience of, what would I do in person? Is this something that I would outwardly discuss and in person? Something that comes up a lot for my clients is, I have a handful of clients who, um they come from 10, 20 years ago being in the LGBTQ community, where, being open about that could potentially cost you a job. And it was legal in those situations to not get that job or to be discriminated against. And so for them, they're having to get that permission of, well, hold on a second, like, you're married to your partner and with kids. Like, anybody who knows you knows that, like, this is who you are. Why are you hiding this part of yourself? Like, that's just who you are. Well, I'm just scared that there might be certain people who don't like it or who don't like me. Okay, but also you're a business owner and you're an entrepreneur, and do you really want to be taking business from someone who disapproves or would frown upon you and your life and your family and your kids? Like, that in your part of your life, like, that's asshole repellent right there. Save yourself the trouble of them feeling like you lied to them because they see that you have two different Instagram accounts and that you have this secret life behind you. And so it's just deciding for you, like, what do you feel comfortable sharing? There's personal and there's private. Private is whatever you want it to be. Personal, that's how you connect with people. But the key there is connection. Are you genuinely wanting to share that because you want to connect with more people like you? Or are you trying to divide people and make them angry? And that's also a signifier of determining whether or not that is worth sharing.
That was bang on. I love everything you said, and I relate to 100% of what you
I don't
said.
even know what I just said at this point. We were just going on a journey together, and we went to church and back and around the world, and I don't even here we are.
No, I actually feel like I'm on the exact same page. I'm very pro humanity, pro. It's not about picking sides at the end of the day. It's about being able to have an intellectual, respectful conversation. And if we can't have that, where are we in the world?
There's
Period.
there's also something that I think is really important. I had someone recently who it was a troll on a comment, and she said that I was quote unquote unprofessional because I wasn't willing to listen to another perspective. And I think it's really interesting here because it is possible to listen. You don't have to agree.
Mhm.
You can still disagree. And unfortunately, people look at conversations as it has to be win lose. They look at disagreements as it has to be win lose. They look at arguments and it has to be win lose. And if I'm willing to listen and hear you out and hear your points, and if I can still have mine and we still end the conversation respectfully disagreeing with a very common civil dialogue, to me, that is a win on both sides. Great. This has me more firm in my beliefs. You have your beliefs. How awesome that we can express ourselves and have these beliefs and we can coexist. But just because I still leave this conversation not agreeing with you doesn't mean that I didn't listen to you. It just means that I hear you and also both can exist. And that's an important piece that some people don't take into consideration as it pertains to any type of conversation. My comments are on, I'm listening, I'm reading, I'm replying to you. That doesn't mean I have to agree.
Yeah, and put yourself whichever side you're on of any conflict, put yourself in the other person's shoes. Whether you're here or here, just try to understand, and this is what I personally try to do is understand the other person's perspective. Where are they coming from? Do I understand your struggle, what you're speaking of? And then sometimes I've had to go back and research it to be like, okay, I need to be more educated on this. And I'm a big like I go down the rabbit hole on a lot of shit. It's just one of those things that I want to know or need to know,
We've all
and
been there.
I want to be educated because if I'm having trying to have intellectual conversations, I want to understand the struggle of the other side. I want to understand what you've been through and why you're saying what you are. Like, and it just helps me, I guess, find some middle ground with people. But we can go down that rabbit hole way, way
Right?
further.
That's a whole other
That's
hour of
yeah,
a conversation.
that's gonna be part two. But before we wrap up, I know I said we'd wrap up pretty
All
quickly.
good.
We've gone over an hour here. For the final kind of question, and it's really relevant to you and your future as a leader, as someone who's growing. You're very young still. You've got so much of your career ahead of you. What lies ahead for Giselle, and what does greatness really mean for you today looking forward? And would you mind sharing the name of your book, or do you even have it yet?
I don't have the name of my book yet, but I will absolutely be making that a community process where I'll be, and I'm constantly listening and getting ideas and all of that. Um, what does greatness look like? So, I'll go into a little. I'll go ahead and go into a story. It's not going to be a quick one, but a couple of years ago, I was driving with a handful of girlfriends. We had just had a really fun night out. I was the sober driver of the evening, and it was about an hour long drive. And it was late at night. And as we're driving, I look up at the signs and I can't read them. I can see letters, but I can't understand what they're saying. And I look down at the pedals and I look at the steering wheel and I don't know how to drive. Like all of a sudden, I completely forgot what I was doing. I didn't know what my name was. I didn't know where we were going. I had no I felt like I had lost my brain and I thought like I was having a stroke, but I also couldn't interpret what was happening. But I felt like completely discombobulated. And I remember seeing a police car on the side of the road. And in the US, if you see a police car, you're supposed to get out of the way. And I found myself veering towards the police car and just unsure of what to do or where to go. Fast forward, we were able to safely get on the side of the road and not get in trouble with the police. And as soon as we were able to pull over, my whole body went limp. And I really remember thinking, "Oh my god, I'm gonna die. I don't know what's happening, like, but I'm gonna die." And I really had a near death experience, the kind that I've heard about in different keynotes or movies or TV shows. And in that moment, there were 3 questions that popped up for me. One was, do the people in my life know how much I love them? Am I living my life authentically? Am I proud of what I'm going to leave behind? And those 3 questions are ones that I am constantly asking myself and are to me a symbol of greatness. And I feel like I've gotten better, especially over the last couple of years of having answers to those questions that I feel proud of, whereas previously I wouldn't have made any time for the people who I love or who love me the most. And I feel like my idea of greatness and success, it's constantly evolving and it's constantly changing. Where for me, work used to be the most important thing, and now, relationships and connection are even more important than that. But those are 3 questions that I'm constantly asking myself that I believe, are a symbol and token of greatness and are a constant challenge, especially for someone like me who I'm constantly on the road and I'm constantly serving others and I'm constantly serving strangers, where I could be the best, awesomest, most wonderful influence to all of these strangers. But if the ones in my life who know me the most don't get any fraction of that or only a shell of a human being, then what was all of it for in the first place? So that's something that I'm always and constantly thinking of, and hope that it can inspire someone. And fast forward, so what makes this story even more powerful, but the reason why I'm laughing is it turns out I was not having a stroke, I was not having a heart attack. Got to the hospital, took all the tests and the blood and the scans and everything, and there was nothing wrong whatsoever. And so what we were able to conclude was that it was actually a panic attack. And as any achiever would say, "Well, what are you so stressed out about, Giselle?" And my response was, "I don't know. I don't know how that happened. That's so crazy. That's so wild." But when I really sat with myself, I recognized where there were so many areas in my life where I was spreading myself out too thin and not sleeping and not taking care of myself and compromising what I wanted so that I could make other people happy. And my body and my health caught up to me before I could even catch up to myself. So that too is another one of how I sleep at night, both in terms of how my conscience is, but also the quality that I'm giving myself to be able to rest and recharge so that I can show up as my best, are some of the things that are constantly playing and replaying in my head.
I love that. Sometimes it's just one of those crazy, wild experiences that makes you realize what is important in life. And I love that you shared that and shared that vulnerability with all the viewers and everyone listening. So really appreciate the hour and a bit that you gave us. And I'm honored to have hosted you and your greatness and
Thank
shared that
you.
with the people. So thank you so much, Giselle. Do you have any questions for me before we wrap it up?
Oh my goodness. What are you hoping this podcast of a vehicle will do for you?
Hmm. Uh, there's a couple of things, but one is the podcast was started with a goal in mind of just putting out great content. So that's number one, is great people, great interviews, and really insightful content for people to listen to, learn from, and to keep coming back. So that will continue into next year. And we've had and they say most podcasts fail by the ninth episode. You are officially the 10th. So in
Woo!
our first 10, we've had some
You crossed
absolute
that
rock
threshold.
stars. Yeah. And I'm very thankful to have had the people I've had on. I'm thankful for the relationships that I've been able to build and to host those people, to see that this is a great platform to give back to people. That's number one. Number two, we are rolling out a something exciting in the new year, which is going to be marketing side to Art of Greatness, as well as some courses where we help teach people on how to do things and get out there, more public speaking, more helping others. And as also the managing director of the agency, I take a big part in helping a lot of the agents grow within the brokerage. So I do take great pride in that. And that's something I just genuinely want to continue to do down the road. That's something that I've always loved. And that's my background. I won't get too deep, but my background is leadership. I've ran corporations or retail sides for the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years. Used to be the director of operations for Saks Fifth Avenue, Canada, have led some really large scale teams. So that's really what I want to do, is help others grow and kind of shine the light in places where they're not sure and help them achieve their greatness.
Love it. Well, congratulations. I'm honored that I have been here. I've loved this conversation, and if you have been inspired by this conversation, then please come find me on Instagram, where I spend most of my time, and make sure that you leave a review for this awesome podcast. I'm so excited for you.
I appreciate it, Giselle. Thank you. Lots of love. And it was an
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure meeting you
Thank
in
you. Me
person.
too.
That was cheers.